Hey guys, what is up? We got a rare daytime filming for me, but I actually just got done watching the Exodite episode 1 and I wanted to talk about that a little bit. For those who don't know, the Exodite is the newest animation foray by the Games Workshop subscription service Warhammer Plus, and in my opinion, it's their best looking one yet. It's a really competently animated and rendered 3D show. Short, really. I think that they really pulled out a lot of stops in terms of upgrading the quality of their production in a really good way. I don't know what that means in terms of, finances or budget or anything like that, but what I can tell you is that it looks good. It doesn't look like Astartes good, because that should be, I think, more of an outlier than a standard, but it looks about like a similar quality to a well-budgeted AAA like video game cutscene, which I would say is like very acceptable to my viewing standard. I don't know. Everybody has different standards for what they watch and what they're into, but it was not distracting in parts in some ways like the hammer and bolter animation certainly can be, or even parts of Angels of Death can be as well. There are some small parts that don't look as good as the whole, but that is by and large pretty ignorable and absolutely doesn't detract from the experience. I think part of what kind of helps to do that is, the Tau are aliens and, maybe they just don't emote like humans do, and thus the animators can use that to their advantage to hide some of the potential uncanny valley aspects that could pop out in a 3D animation like this. Another thing that I wanted to talk about with this show, though, is the tone. A lot of people like to hate on the Tau because they don't think they're grim dark enough, but that was, I think, absolutely shut down with this portrayal of the Tau. Now, I'll be the first to admit I don't know much about the Tau at all. I don't even know much about most Xenos. In fact, the title of the show, The Exodite, I thought was a Tau thing. Apparently, it's an Eldar thing. So, I'm not an authority of the lore of the Tau or anything like that. But they were portrayed, in my opinion, in a very interesting contrast and sort of a mirror to the galactic imperium of mankind. A lot of the shots, I felt like you could take the drones and swap them for servo skulls and it would just be like the Imperium in terms of tone and concept, which I thought was really cool. Kind of how Tau functions well is as that sort of mirror to the Imperium and sort of a foil to mankind in a lot of ways that like the Eldar aren't really, the Chaos aren't really, they're sort of Imperium adjacent but alien at the same time, and I think that was conveyed extremely well. The other thing I wanted to talk about was specifically there's a scene with an ethereal, again, not an expert, but it was carried out in such a way that was like very moody, very dark, definitely grim dark, and it really carried out the feeling of like the greater good being kind of like a cult. A lot of the Tau members throughout are, quoting phrases about the greater good, and it seemed very cultish in a good way, in a way that like this sci-fi setting lends itself particularly well to. My only real criticism of it so far is it was, like I said, a short. It was about 10 minutes long, which is not really the length that I was expecting going into it. I wanted more. What the story does in this episode, it sets up the stakes extremely quickly and competently. We know what's happening. The Tau are fighting the Imperium, but it's not really either of their fault. It's kind of, a useless war of circumstance because of this one Eldar character that we get a very brief glimpse of in the trailing shots. I don't think that's really spoilers because, again, it's just really setting up the series. This is literally the first episode, nothing has really happened yet. It's just setting the stage, establishing some characters, and establishing the conflict. All of which it does, I think, quite well. The only thing I didn't really track was like who the different Tau characters were. They all looked really similar to me, and I don't know if that is just xeno-racism on my part, but it was kind of hard to differentiate the characters. That might just be a Tau thing. I don't know, but for the series going forward, I do see that as a potential challenge to really establish some individual characteristics, which is not a Tau thing to do, but I think is important from a storytelling perspective. You know what I mean? You gotta have characters who feel individual, and you have to care about them as a viewer or a consumer of this media. So that is going to be an interesting thing to see how they handle that, especially if everybody is just wearing, you know, their Pathfinder helmets and their stealth suits and stuff all the time, in which case it's literally impossible to distinguish between any of them because they all look virtually identical. That was something that I thought actually Angels of Death did quite well with separation of the different Marines, because they were all Space Marines, but none of them looked the same as each other. Everybody had like their own kind of thing going on, and that worked really well, I thought, in terms of setting up these as individual characters and not a gestalt entity. Interested to see how the Exodite tackles that problem coming episodes, because we definitely see personalities of some of these characters, but I'm not going to be able to recognize them unless something is done to do that. Otherwise, though, I thought it was a very well animated, good looking show. The writing seems good, although it's a little bit early to tell. From 10 minutes of animation, they set up the conflict, and that's pretty much all they could do in that span of time. So a little bit early to pass judgment on the quality of the storyline thus far. But in terms of tone and mood and visual, I think they're absolutely nailing it. And it did leave me excited to see more, although a little bit salty that I wasn't able to see more in the same episode because it was 10 minutes. It was only 10 minutes long. Anyway, I do think this is poised to be the most successful and most well-produced Warhammer show thus far. I know there's a couple of other interesting looking ones. Of course, Astartes 2, everyone is looking forward to that. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon because Astartes 1 took like, I think, a year plus to produce and is about 8 minutes long. So getting a full series of Astartes it's going to take a while if they're maintaining that level of quality, which I certainly hope they do. There's also a Black Templars series slated for release, which looks like they shared some 3D renders of it and it looks good, but not much else is known of that. And really, you know, animation is where things are made or broken in terms of a series that is based on 3D. So a lot remains to be kind of seen there, but the Exodite, I think it functions well. It does what it needs to do, and it really presents the Tau in a way that I had never considered them before, which I thought was a really interesting and welcome choice in their portrayal. So, I mean, you know, if you're a Tau hater, give the episode a watch. It might actually change your view on the tone of the Tau in the future. But hey, if you've seen the Exodite, what did you think of the first episode? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this review, first impressions, something like that, you know, be sure to leave a like and stay subscribed to the channel. People seem to enjoy when I talk about Warhammer animations, and I'm happy to do so as a self-confessed Warhammer Plus apologist. I'm really just looking forward to that Vindicare model, but, you know, all this extra stuff is icing on the cake, and of course, I'm going to watch it because I have access to it. More hobbying content coming in the future, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.